We spend most of our lives trying to reclaim what trauma steals from us. Control, love, joy, happiness, purpose, acceptance, agency. And some of us, if not most of us, die never realizing that trauma can't steal any of these things from us. It can only steal our ability to see these things for ourselves. I am James Church. Most people in the Philadelphia arts community know me as Enoch the Poet. I am an author, trauma-informed educator, the executive publisher of Black Minds Publishing, as well as the founder, and also a manga writer. Manga is essentially a Japanese comic book. Even though I am not Japanese, I feel comfortable calling my work a manga because it falls within the vein of that artistic style and form of storytelling. Immortal Dark is a Black supernatural martial arts manga that takes place on the continent known as Jura, which is a predominantly Black continent that's split into 8 different countries with varying cultures, forms of Black identity, and characters that express and engage in multiple different ways. Nico Savage is the main protagonist of Immortal Dark, and he is an 18-year-old martial artist trained since he was 5 years old. He is from a culture of people called the alchemists, who have the ability to transmute their skin into gold. But Nico has a special hint to his ability, and he's actually able to turn his skin into onyx instead. Onyx is a much harder material than gold, and so that gives him a slight advantage in combat over the rest of the alchemist people that he engages with. Manga stories tend to poke at the meanings and gray areas and nuances of life overall, which I think is a much better way of storytelling. These things were feeling very familiar to me. Depression is very active in my family, and anxiety is rampant in my family. I have bipolar disorder. College was when my depression became more noticeable, and it's also when my alcoholism actually began to grip me. How do I get these things in order? And learning about all that led me to mental health, because it's literally the through line for everything, right? It impacts everything, and it's the thing we pay the least attention to. We all have trauma, right? And so the deeper I dove into that, the larger it became in my creative practice. River is the sister of Nico Savage. They haven't seen each other in about 6 years because she left the home before he did. Her skin does turn the regular gold, but she has the ability to not use the hand sign that is most commonly aligned with being able to do transmutation, which is taking your fist and smashing it into your palm like this. And she can just forego that entire process and just transform on the spot, which is pretty cool. When I was young, drawing used to be my thing. I used to make my own comics and manga. And one day I was at my mom's house and I was visiting, and she was like, oh, I found your old comics, go look through them. So I was looking through them. I was like, oh man, I was really doing some shit, low key. So then it started dancing around in my brain a lot. And I'm the type of person where if an idea sticks with me long enough, I take that as divine intervention. That's God telling me that I need to move on this thing and not just keep letting this sit around. Because we have tons of ideas all the time, and they're fleeting. They're fleeting. So I started doing more research on what's it like to be a manga creator, what's the process for creating manga, so on and so forth. And I found this video about best practices for making a story. 1, create the world before you create the characters. So that way, your world will not be dependent on how interesting your characters are. The world in and of itself is almost like a character. So the continent of Jura is a world that I created that's populated with a large variety of different Black identities, characters who engage and interact in different ways from different cultures with different modes of expression, different gender identities, different sexualities, all coming together in this one story to showcase a lot of the ways in which mental health can manifest within our bodies based on our life experiences and the traumas that we go through. The second thing she said was, don't write what you want to see, write about what you care about. I am deeply invested in Blackness. I'm deeply invested in mental health, specifically as it relates to generational trauma. We tend to talk about trauma in this isolated manner. And so it's this event happened to me, and these are the ripple effects that have occurred from that. But how I'm responding to an event, what events I'm coming in contact with are all extensions of the trauma that the people around me have experienced, both within my generation and outside of my generation. And so whatever I do creatively, it's all about just focusing on generational trauma, how to cope with that, how to identify it, how to navigate it. And then that is how I started the process of coming up with the story for Immortal Dark.
In Immortal Dark, there's so many moments that when we're in an editing process, it's not even a correction. It's just this is great. I really like what you said here. People need to see this. I said that multiple times. People need to hear this. James is good at manipulating words in a way that can be understood, but also impactful. And my creativity inspires his creativity. So now we just have a soup of amazingness that's happening.
Shula is what is called an Ifrit, which is a culture of people who have the ability to store solar energy in their melanin, which they can then repurpose however they see fit. For Shula, she channels the solar energy in her body through the hilt to make a beam saber. Enoch is the sage of the Wolves Den fighting gym. They have an injury on their leg, which prevents them from being able to maneuver in the regular way, which I thought was important because being differently able doesn't mean you can't still engage in the things that fully able people can. Enoch is one of the strongest characters in the story, definitely not to be fucked with by any means, and they will destroy you, effortlessly. So I also find it really important to show other Black and brown folk what other worlds could look like where we actually thrive. Because this is something we can have here. No matter the things that are operating against us, this is a thing that can exist.
I tell people it's kind of like a trick. It's this is really great. There's violence, there's joy, there's happiness, there's a bunch of things going into it, but we're trying to trick you into understanding what mental health is.
If it moves somebody to go to therapy, that'd be amazing. I'm here. I ain't trying to save nobody. Very much a fan of that whole Tupac quote of I may not be the change, but I'll inspire the change type of thing. So I don't expect anyone to read it and just wake up and be cured. But if through reading it, you feel more empowered to be intentional about your own healing journey, yeah, that's it for me.